we're going to try something a little bit different for our questions section today. I have a very, very special guest here with a very special guest with us this morning to go through some questions. Everyone, I would like to welcome Savi Basa to the Fast Chat, who is an account manager with ICF. Savi, would you like to unmute yourself and say good morning to everyone?
Hi, good morning, everyone. Excited to be here, and thank you, Rochelle, for that introduction.
Thank you, and I'm excited to have you here. I reached out to Savi to inquire about some of the most frequently asked questions that she gets about the program, and she was kind enough to share a couple of them to kind of talk through for this morning's call. So while we are going through those questions, I'm going to go ahead and just flip the slide to the next slide here so that you can see the contact information on your screen. Don't worry if you don't get it all written down. I will include all of this information in the follow-up email that goes out after the call. Okay, so without further ado, I'll go ahead and jump into the first question for Savi. The first question is, are all of the units within a building required to participate in the program?
Yeah, that's a question I get a lot about this program, and the news is that no, not all units will have to participate. So, what you were mentioning, Rochelle, earlier, there are different pathways. One option is the common area pathway. Again, those are measures associated with common areas, so units don't have to participate within that pathway. Or even if you are deciding to do any in-unit measures, not all units will have to participate at all. It is entirely up to you. Obviously, the more measures you implement and the greater savings, the higher the incentive. But it's completely up to the property owner as to how much they would like to do.
That's awesome. I can't imagine why any individual unit wouldn't want to participate and get upgrades to their unit, but those things can happen, I'm sure.
Yes, yeah.
So once, once they kind of kick off the project, is there a specific timeline in which you have to complete it, Savi, or what do those timelines look like?
Yeah, so once we start the project, the main timeline is the year timeline. So we would like to complete all projects by December 31st of the year. So again, the timeline is largely up to the property owner, but once we get started, like you mentioned in the slides before, we like to go ahead and do that assessment on the property. The assessment itself takes only a few hours, but we take a week to return the report back to you to let you know how much the energy savings will be and what the potential incentive will be. Then the construction timeline is entirely up to the property owner. And then we would then possibly complete a post inspection if the project gets selected. And then we close out after reviewing all the required documentation. But the main deadline to look for is to uh, entirely finish the project before the end of the year. So if we're starting the project, we obviously couldn't start it, late December. We probably wouldn't have enough time to complete construction and review the documents. So that also depends on the timeline of construction.
Awesome. So it sounds like there's some flexibility in there.
Yes,
Um,
yes.
we Awesome. So we mentioned financing a couple of times throughout the presentation. Savi, are you able to shed a little light on where the funding comes from?
Yeah, sure. So this comes from LA County. Uh, the REN stands for Regional Energy Network. So throughout California, there are different regional networks. So the Southern California one is sponsored by LA County themselves. You'll notice that Rochelle mentioned earlier uh, SoCal Gas, SoCal Edison. Something that to highlight really is that if you have completed a project that received incentives from SoCalGas and from SoCal Edison previously within the past 5 years. We cannot incentivize that same measure again. So, for example, you might have done low flow shower heads through SoCal Gas maybe 2 years ago, but we can't pay on that low flow shower head again if you decide to renovate for whatever reason those low flow shower heads once more. Even though the funding comes from LA County, that's just an important point I like to highlight that we can't double dip in that case, but primarily comes from LA County in conjunction with working with SoCal Edison, SoCal Gas.
Awesome. Okay, awesome. Well, those are the three questions that we had. I don't see that any more came in the chat box. So I would like to thank Savi so much for being with us this morning and available to answer